just watch as the participants all shuffle in. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
It's great to see you all entering the room here. Hope you're all feeling good and having a good day. You've arrived at this, our second WGF Library Script Breakdown session. I'm Lauren O'Connor, your co-host for this event. Joining me is my dear colleague, Javier Barrios, and we are script librarians at the Writers Guild Foundation.
Yeah, so maybe you guys, maybe you're here because you know about the WGF library and enjoy using it. But if you don't know about the library, the library collects film and television scripts, and we provide access to them inside the WGA building here in LA. So we're not back in person yet, but we are working on reopening. In the meantime, we can still help you guys with any script and formatting questions you may have remotely. Poke around our website and our catalog at wgfoundation.org. Without further ado, you might be wondering, what is the WGF Library Script Breakdown?
This is a new series in which Javier and I will sit down virtually with a writer, producer, showrunner, and we will talk at length about a script that they wrote. So these sessions are for anybody out there at any level who loves scripts and loves reading scripts to learn. And think of this kind of like, you're reading a script, but you have commentary from the writer themselves.
Mm-hmm. And for this session, we're so thrilled to have Bill Lawrence. Yeah, thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Wait.
So Bill created and executive produced Scrubs, such an awesome show. Co-created Cougar Town, Spin City, and of course Clone High.
Oh.
But for this session, of course, we're gonna be discussing the awesome show Ted Lasso, which I'm sure if you're here, you love the show like we do.
Right. There's no such thing as an unenthusiastic Ted Lasso fan, right?
No, absolutely not.
So our hope is to have a spirited discussion and breakdown of this pilot script. It'll be great to talk about, writing a pilot and what makes for an engaging pilot, because it's, where the series starts. And I'm going to also assume that plenty of people in attendance here are probably developing or writing one. So hopefully this will provide you some nuggets and wisdom on characters, comedy, structure, etc., to take into your own endeavors. Just like any other session that we do, Javier and I will kick us off with some contextual questions. Then we'll move into having actual script pages on screen, and we'll talk about them in detail. And one more thing, if at any point you who are watching this have a question, feel free to submit it to that Q&A button, like in your main Zoom bar there. But fair warning, while moderating virtually, especially in an event like this where we're sharing our screen, it's a little hard to cherry pick relevant questions. But if something really apropos comes up, we'll try to get to it. So let's try to keep the questions to questions about the pilot script for Ted Lasso. That's what we're here for.
Right.
There's too many questions. You guys can just put out my cell phone number and people can just call me out.
Yeah, just put it in the chat, Bill.
You don't have enough text.
All right.
Right.
So that's our spiel here. Let's give it up one more time for Bill
Too
Lawrence.
much virtual clapping.
Yeah.
It's too loud.
All right. So let's kick it off with the first question here, just to kind of get us going. So we know this show came from this character from these NBC Sports videos. What other shows, stories, characters, things inspired you while you were developing this? Where did it come from?
Sure. Look, I'd be remiss if I didn't say right off the bat, it's so nice to be here. I love this organization. But also, I had partners in crime on this one. I wrote this with Jason Sudeikis, and it was based on, he's an amazing writer. A lot of people don't know he was a writer first on SNL long before he was a performer. Brendan Hunt and Joe Kelly. Brendan Hunt plays Coach Beard. Joe Kelly is another one of the writers on staff based on a character they created long ago for a bunch of promotional videos for the Premier League. And he's a different character who was loud, and it's very sketchy, but super funny if you want to go back and watch him, but a lot of screaming and bombastic America and stuff. And in a very cool way, The not cool way is I was pursuing Jason Sudeikis to do a different show. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, cool. And he said, you want to help me turn Ted Lasso into a TV show? And he had put a lot of thought into it. And in a really cool way, he knew Scrubs, and he's like, I'm trying to do a show that kind of combines, big, broad, silly comedy with moments of emotional heart. And the weirdest thing I can say to all those writers out there is when that's arguably my voice. I do it in a lot of my shows, and my career has peaks and valleys, and that went from being a thing I did to a thing that was out of style when there's very snarky comedy that people would, shoot jokes back and forth. I love it. You ask me, I always tell people my favorite show is Veep. And if they ask me to describe the show Veep, I'm like, well, it's horrible people finding new ways to be horrible to each other, And so when we started making this show, there was no pandemic, but the inspiration was Jason and I are both very obsessed with the idea of mentorship, which is a huge component of this show. The first mentor in my life was an English teacher named Bob Cox, who told me I could be less of a screw up. And I named Dr. Cox and Scrubs after him. And Jason had the same experience with the basketball coach and somebody that told him that he could be a comedian and be an improv coming from Kansas City. And we combined that with another major influence for us having children and being aware of the world. Though there was no pandemic, discourse on social media and out in the ethos had become so toxic and dark and cynical that we were joking around and said, if we met someone like Ted Lasso in real life, our immediate thought would be, wait 2 weeks and that guy will reveal himself to be an asshole like everybody else. And then if 2 weeks later he doesn't, he turns out to be kind and empathetic and forgiving and supportive, then you have to look at yourself. And that was kind of, the influence of the show. We said, even if this show fails, it'd be cool to do a show that felt therapeutic for everybody involved.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
That's great.
Great. So another question is, so speaking of pilots, so what do you feel is the must-haves when you're writing a pilot? How do you ensure that you have an engine to drive the series, and what sort of do you need from the get-go?
Yeah, it's a good question. I personally always start with characters. The way that I create a pilot is if I know a world I want to live in, and I know the beginning and end, of where I want the pilot to end, and the end is, as well as I do in TV, the end's really the beginning. There's two things I care about is one, the characters, and there's even in a comedy that there's a level of emotional depth, that you feel that they care about something, care about each other, are dealing with some pathos and hurt. Ted Lasso is a good example in that I don't think people expect at the end, for kind of the gut punch. I hope they don't expect, when you find out, oh, why is this thing that seemed like a joke, why is it happening? Oh, it's because he's okay leaving his family because he's got a wife that he loves that wants him to go, and I think those are the things that drag people in. And then the second thing is I try super duper hard to be specific. When I used to teach at the Writers Guild Showrunners program, and I always say, if you write a pilot and you have a joke that you go, instead of this character saying the joke, I'll have a different character saying the joke, then it's my personal belief that you failed, because you shouldn't be able to take one line from a person and give it to another. And it's so hard to get people dialed in on who characters are fast, and you needed to do it faster than ever nowadays, because myself included, I'm a TV fan. I decide very quickly if I'm in or not,
Right. Wow.
Those are and I'm guilty of it. I always say the best character first line ever was in the Cheers pilot. The phone rings and the coach answers the phone. He goes, okay, I'll check. And he goes, phone call for Ernie Pantuso. And then Sam goes, that's you, coach. And he goes, oh, right. Speaking. And I'm like, I know that character in 2 lines, and I get it for the show.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. We always tell people read Cheers, the pilot.
Awesome.
We say, you got to read that.
It's one of the many pilots I stole from, man.
That's great. No, and the best thing you said just now is the end is really the beginning, which I think that in it's a big failing in a lot of new writers. When they write a pilot, they write the one story, and
they write the independent film version.
Right,
of the pilot,
right.
They go, what a great tiny movie.
Right.
Next thing, yeah.
So that's great to you know that you said that. Another question is, like, you know, with television, you've been in the business for a while. So with television having like evolved the way it has, like, do you find like the essential components change when you're developing like a multicam comedy, single cam animated series, and now streaming, like, or do you still feel like you need the same things?
Combination, look, man, I love that it's evolving and it's a new set of challenges. It's hard to believe I've been doing this for so long because I'm so very, very young looking. I'm joking.
Well, you still are young.
I'm staring at my own gray hair right now. It's so upsetting. I was at my daughter's 21st birthday the other night, and it made me feel like I was 1,000 years old. So, look, there's a lot of things that have remained constant, which is, whether it's a comedy needing to be actually funny and the characters to be well developed enough that you invest in them and invest your time with so many choices. I think that kind of the overall ethos of what it means to be a storyteller has remained the same. But what's very interesting is that you've been presented with new pitfalls where before, there were old pitfalls. Like, so to me, and the new ones are, on the one hand, you go, oh, shoot, we were just outlining an episode of a new show on Apple out back, and we had it with app breaks. And I still occasionally find myself building to these imaginary commercial act breaks that I did for the first 15 years of my career. Hey, sit around, buddy. Sit around. First 15 years of my career. And you don't have to do that. But by the same token, if you're doing a streaming show, then you could also trick yourself into going, oh, wow, I don't need to do a beginning and middle and end of every episode like I used to in network TV. And how many of us have seen those streaming shows that we hear later? They're really good. You just got to watch the first 6 episodes, then it starts.
I hear that all the time.
So I think that there's new pitfalls and challenges, and I love it. I love and I also love the biggest change is I'm from an era that what you were writing was to appeal to the broadest swath of an audience possible. Yep. When I created Spin City with Gary, you would literally sit around and they would give notes based on, it was a time that we want everyone to watch this. Everyone, and now if you get a super duper loyal niche audience that's going to follow you from year to year, you get to survive in perpetuity. And that's, to me, a super new kind of fun.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Cool. So getting into this pilot script specifically, what was the collaboration like with the other writers, particularly Jason? Who did what? And
look, the best thing was, to me, Jason came in with a solidified idea that he had been sitting on for a good long while of what this story was, and how this guy got there. And then it became a matter of executing it. And what was really interesting, when he was sitting on the idea, one of the it's going to sound political, I'm sorry, but one of the barriers to entry at the time was people telling him, even friends, going, who's going to believe, an American football coach gets hired to coach a Premier League team? And then we're immediately suddenly in an era of, I'm pretty sure a reality host is the president and that anything can happen. Right. And it became a metaphor for the show, in that if you say that example of an American abroad might be by some viewed as the worst example, an ugly American. And we called it ignorance with arrogance. So it would be, the bad version of a American out in the world is, I don't know anything about that, but I'm brilliant at it. And everybody says I should be a doctor. People say I could be a scientist. Everybody says I could be a baseball coach. Right. And so it came up with the philosophy, and it was straight from Jason, was ignorance with curiosity is somebody that kind of became our mantra for the pilot, which is, this guy's a rube, but then you slowly realize as the things go, he's a little savvier than we think. He's like dumb like a fox instead of, and part of the pilot, became a bunch of us scribbling scenes down. And the most fun was agonizingly doing what everybody here does and sitting in a room and going through it line by line together. And the only other anecdote I can tell you about it is the best fight we had, and it's a huge tip of the hat to Jason and about streaming television, is Apple had bought the Jason Sudeikis show, as anyone would. I'm not judging. And it was very important to Jason, even more so than me, that the show starts with probably the longest scene in the show, starring a British woman that no American audiences would generally know unless they recognize her as the Game of Thrones woman, starting on her story. So it was a real conscious decision by him to announce, like, no, not only is this an ensemble show, but the story of the female lead, who you think is an antagonist, and then we sneak up and she becomes a protagonist, is going to drive the show just as much. It was a really interesting thing to happen, because I understood it. Apple wasn't excited about that initially. I mean, if you're doing Jason Sudeikis, you want it to start with him, on a plane being that character, and it's a long way in. But it was a cool roll of the dice, and I think it's one of the reasons the show works.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think also what you just said about the ignorance thing, I think you also hit on your theme. Like that's it's like you came up with the theme. There it is. So anyway, so let's move into the script.
I have one quick question before we get pages on screen.
Sure.
About how many drafts do you think you did of this before you hit on what you shot?
I'll tell you that I don't know how everybody here does this. The cool thing is, once it's on the page, Jason and I overlap in that we don't generally do a lot of rewriting. Once we feel like we've nailed it, we'd rather try to make those moments work. But on the way, we lived in this incredible. First of all, anybody out there that says they love writing, you're lying. It means you're a sociopath. Nobody loves writing. Okay. You love having written something. Right. Going like, oh, I finished. But writing is the worst. And we were in the trap of, say you finish 5 pages on a day. When you come back the next day, instead of starting on page 6 and doing 6, 7, and 8, you go, let's rewrite the first 5, and then we'll add 2 more and get to 7. And then the next day, let's go back again and get all the way up to 7, changing it. We'll get to 9. And so by the end, I would say that the first 2/3 had been rewritten 25 times.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I heard Eric Roth rewrites the first 25 pages like many, many times, and while he thinks of what he's going to do next, and then he goes forward. So I think, so let's put up, Kat, can we put up page, can you share page 1 of the script? Fantastic. So I believe that that the first question we were going to ask was exactly what you said, which is why you started with with not with Ted Lasso. And so I believe you answered that. But
I'll stretch it out. This is a cool Easter egg for people that are kind enough to show up here, which is and it's straight from Jason. And you can Kate, you don't love writing. I don't care. Kate Hadley's just in the chat. Or you're eventually going to kill people and wear their skin, because only crazy people love it. Maybe Kate does. I'm joking around. One of the things we love about Ted Lasso is, if it's a sports movie, you have to, this is another reason we start with Rebecca, you have to embrace the tropes. There's no sports movie that has not been done. There's one about arm wrestling. There's one about figure skating. There's one, and they're universal. My wife doesn't love boxing. She's seen every Rocky movie. Right. So we also knew that we were going to go, here's your trope. This domineering, edgy woman is going to be the villain. And we knew and welcomed that if we started this way, that most people would go, I know what's going on here. It's like the movie Major League, and she's the bad guy and she's trying to sabotage everything. But we knew ahead of time, like, we want people to think they know what we're doing, and then we want them to be annoyed when in episode 4, we show her ex-husband and show the toxic human being that laid waste to her as a human being and put her in this place. And then hopefully gets all those people going, oh, shoot, I actually have empathy for this human and I hope she finds her way out of this. So that was the other reason. And the Easter egg is Jason is so in tune with minutia. Every season of this show, it's an Easter egg. It's the only spoiler I'll do, or my computer will turn off because Apple has control. Starts with the close-up of who has the most dramatic journey, in the show. That because Ted's journey is over 3 years, and we knew Rebecca's journey this first year was going to be huge, and it starts on a close-up of her face. So when the second season premieres, whoever it starts up on a close-up of, that their beginning, middle, and end of that year will be. And by the way, just as Jason's minutia, the last shot of Rebecca with all the water on her face, exact same framing, exact same size.
Oh,
that's her beginning.
Wow. Wow.
And so the second year, look for the same. That's my one spoiler.
That's fantastic. Wow.
Cool. So I think, Kat, if we could just kind of, I want to draw everyone's attention because I want to come back to it. This description of Higgins, mid 50s, middle management, middle everything.
So
well, I'll just ask this question right now. Do you have any specific approach generally to character description?
No, I do, because I find, understandably, for me, and this isn't wrong, there's some writers that if you change an and or an of, they're going to stop you, and it's their right. I don't think actors are allowed to do a Edward Albee play and go, I'm just going to change this line a little bit, when they're doing. And so I respect it. And in some of them, the character descriptions are so meticulous. That's not the world I live in. I love television personally because it's a collaborative medium. So I try to do minimalist character descriptions personally, so that if an actor or an actress interprets them in their own way, then I can change the character to suit them. You know what I mean? Rather than somebody coming and trying to hit the most specific, overly described character on earth.
No.
Makes sense. Yeah.
That totally makes sense.
So then, if we can just kind of scroll just a little bit, just so we get a sense of the dialogue here, and right away, you can stop. Right away, these are very distinct character voices. Can you talk about how much you had to figure out to write the pilot? I mean, we know how characters develop in the room, but developing how someone talks, in your first script.
Sure. It was, I'll tell you, there's added issues with this one because in a good way, Jason and I overlap. That I personally always say that in a pilot, the characters belong to the writer. I think probably 60-40, 70-30. And in shows that work, it becomes 50-50 with the actors and actresses very quick, and then shifts to the other side even faster. Do you know what I mean? And all my shows, all my shows that have worked before the end of the first season, the performers own the characters and can say, hey, Bill, is it okay if I say it like this? I feel he or she would speak like this, or I feel he or she would not say this, in a way that's what happens when you have performers elevating your material because they've taken the ownership of it. Mm-hmm. For me anyways. What was tricky on this one is neither Brendan, Jason, Joe, nor I knew the British lingo. So we knew going in, we had to embrace this. And that when we brought actors and actresses in, that we're going to tweak the language to suit the language. That we had to embrace that. And in fact, I'm sure depending on how late this draft is, that there are some lines in here that either were said differently because they're actual Brits, everybody besides Jason and Brendan is a Brit, or that have been changed in here after the fact.
Oh, interesting.
Scroll a little, Kat, so we can get a sense of that. Kind of just jumping to page 2. That was my exact next question. Just like what you need in order to write, an English person authentically, or even if you scroll just a little bit more, Kat.
That George line right there. Oh, she's a cheeky one. Isn't she? Look, love. whatever you need to get off it. So that is just how that actor was speaking, and it was not truly how we were writing at the time.
Oh, interesting.
He took what we were saying, do you know what I mean?
Right.
And said, this is a British version.
Right.
Oh, that's yeah, because it sounds just, I mean, you know who he is as soon as he opens his mouth.
Right. Absolutely. So Kat, just scroll a little bit more, just so people can see, a little bit more of this George stuff. And then we get to the newscaster down at the bottom.
This is, by the way, Stoppers, I'll show you. This is randomly, because Jason was such a big force. And I don't know if I do this too much in this show. And the one thing he allowed me, which is it's Dr. Cox, it's Mike Fox in Spin City. I love characters speechifying early so you get to know who they are. And I remember that Jason had this scene really thought out, and he was kind enough to, when I said, I think you should let Rebecca do I'm a force to be reckoned with speech right in this scene. And the two of us kind of knocked this one out together in a way that I remember very fondly. It was really fun writing with him.
Wow.
It's great.
That is good.
Do we? One of your daughters.
It's a crutch, though. I'm sorry, I interrupted your question. I just
no. I'm just
my own shame.
It's
my own shame, because anytime you're on page 3 or 4 of one of my pilots, there's going to be a character name with way too many paragraphs after it.
Right.
So now people look for it, and you're like, oh, one of the leads of Bill's show is going to speechify. So you know
That's good. Kat, scroll. Let's go to page 3 here. Yeah, there we go. Well, and this is, I don't know if this question actually relates to page 3, but I have it here. When you're developing characters, do you think about like what obstacles they're going to serve for Ted, or like what function in the story? Because I noticed Coach Beard is described as an encyclopedia. How do you character?
I do, this is a change between old time TV and new time TV. So old network TV, which was a pilot model, I'd write a good pilot, what I hoped was a good pilot, and then get the staff together and go, all right, let's figure this shit out and where we're going and what the world is. This show is picked up straight to series. And in the streaming world, what we did, and I've done it on a show before this and on this one, and it's I find it really fun, was we mapped out every character's journey, what we thought was their journey. And I don't just mean Rebecca, because Rebecca, I'm not spoiling it, the first season, we said where she's at, how she got there, crossroads. Is she going to go back to the light or back down to the darkness? And we decided. Ted's journey, we had mapped out for season 1, 2, and 3, the whole thing, beginning, middle, and end. Person who the second season is about, we had it mapped out. But I will tell you, Jason's so meticulous. We had journeys mapped out for Roy, for Jamie Tart, for, by the way, what's so interesting about this show is people ask me for spoilers, and I say, all the hints are there. Do you think that Jason Sudeikis' character has a panic attack and then he's just good? Do you know what I mean? Or is that something we have to play out? If Jamie Tart's father reveals himself at the end of season 1 to be a horrible, horrible human being, that's probably the first beat of his story and not the last beat. You know what I mean?
Right.
If Brett Goldstein's guy is getting injured in the last game, is that the end of his story, of Roy's story? No. So what was really funny is even the tiniest of characters, Sam Obasanya be a goldfish. They had their beginning, middle, and end coming into this. And so it was less about how they react to Ted and more about putting on a wall each person's journey and figuring out, all right, Ted's is across 3 seasons. This character's is this season. This character's will be in the second. This character's will be in the third. And then kind of making them all intersect if we could.
Wow.
Oh, fantastic.
That's
so helpful.
Super fun.
Yeah. Cool. Let's go to page 4. And Bill, I know you already answered this about like why you started with you didn't start with Ted, but we did have a question about like is there a significance to him coming out of the bathroom?
That's a great question, by the way. That's just Jason Sudeikis right away going. wanting to go, no, I've already figured out who the coach is going to be. And then you hear a toilet flush and it's just some dumb turkey, coming out. It's a combination of that. And something else we love doing in this world is we decided back in the pilot that we wanted to make every minor character that you ever see in this show have not only a purpose in the pilot, but you'll see them again.
Right.
And so we needed them to be up and at 'em, because when we auditioned, we thought we found the perfect kid to find just a punk, pretentious, posh British kid who's just, oh, you're going to get murdered. They're going to hate you, and we knew it kind of helped start our whole, zeitgeist for this thing is when we auditioned this kid, Jason and I and Joe and Brennan were immediately like, we have to figure out when he comes back in this first season and how he continues to exist moving forward.
Right. Yeah, because right away you get a sense of the Ted Lasso. You would think that flushing the toilet could mean nervousness, but immediately, immediately you mean, this guy, he's fine.
That's smart. By the way, I'm going to start saying that's what it was. That's a smarter answer.
Wow, that's really profound, Javier.
Much
that's
better
what I do when I
Javier. That's good.
So let's see. So let's move on to page 7, which is a wonderful song, Waterloo Sunset, that you used. So our question for you is do you write listening to songs you want to use, and was it important to use this specific song in that scene? We get, just to give you some context, we get questions all the time about do I write music in my pilots? Do I write, do I write the music I want? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my rules are this, and I'll speak for Jason and me. It's a combo of the two. Okay. We here and there. So our rules are here and there. We'll know there's a needle drop and we won't know what it is. And we live by the rule, even if you script a needle drop, until you have visual picture, you don't know if it works. So just because you scripted it, that doesn't mean it's the best one, and you still got to try others. Okay. That said, and we tried a bunch of songs right here. This scene exists, just so you know. This is a producing decision. My problem with this show being predominantly a soundstage show was it would have been very easy for people to not understand that we were shooting in the UK. And so we felt it was super duper important early on to show these guys in London and show some production value and show that they were there. So the B-side, if I say, keep playing around with music, the best music you can, the B-side of that, and this was not one of them, is Jason and I both believe that there are certain pieces that are so distinct that you shoot to the piece. So when this pilot went out, an example of Scrubs is we used the song that a lot of people have used, Hallelujah, at the end of the 4th episode, but it's 20 years ago, so it's not overdone, and a whole bunch of characters die, and the song was playing as we shot these things, and the cameras were cut to it ahead of time, and it was shot like a music video. The end of this, when the pilot went out, even before they picked it up, officially, Jason had written in the script, "We'd love you to listen to this music, this piano piece when you're listening to Ted's phone call, because guaranteed, if you read his phone call while you have that piano piece in the background, it'll make you pretty sad, And so that was specifically shot to fit the music. So it's both sides.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, we noticed that second music cue too. So Kat, let's just go to the next page 8, where we've got this scene in Ollie's car. We've got the 2 coaches kind of going over flashcards, and this is kind of a little more detailed than what you replaced it with, which I think is just Beard and Lasso walking through the stadium or the club, and Beard's explaining how soccer came about as a sport where they didn't want young men to use their hands. Can you kind of talk about how this evolved?
Yeah, look, this is a product. If anybody knows the original Premier League videos, they're super popular. And when we went around to sell this, people would watch the IP and they'd watch the footage and they'd be excited about including some things from those original movies in the show, because they weren't universally seen. They were online and they're hysterical. This is one of them. It was never Jason's intent to rehash all his Premier League videos. And so the second that we got there and we shot this and we're like, hey, it's funny, but we don't need it. And we wrote the stuff in the stadium long after the fact, because we got there and didn't shoot all the football that was kind of backlayed into the episodes until we had shot like 5 of them, and once we were walking around that real Premier League stadium, we came up with all that other stuff to kind of fit in there. But this was a product mostly of, there's a couple sections of stuff from the original IP. Some got removed, some lived.
Got it.
Interesting.
That's really cool. All right, Kat. So let's go to page 10, where we have this adorable line from Nathan that I missed the first couple of times I watched the pilot, where he talks about digging through the garbage to get grass. And I just can we talk about how the dialogue might have evolved as you eventually kind of like shot and produced the episode from what's in the script?
Sure. Look, one of the other interesting things about this particular show, and I don't want to say it's only certain actors or actresses that did this, but what's more than any show I've done, it has more performers who are also writers. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, once they're on set and have a rhythm with each other, they can't stop writing. And Nick Mohammed, who plays Nathan, created his own show. It's called Intelligence. He's a fantastic, it's on Peacock, I believe, with starring him and David Schwimmer. And by the time he was shooting this stuff, he had developed a rapport with Jason because we had shot for a number of weeks and a number of episodes, and this was all at a football stadium. And so, I believe in, and Jason believes in, Joan Brendan too, the freedom once there to, especially when you're doing overlapping dialogue and yelling and running and talking to each other, I would say every take that they did was slightly different. And we were, kind of, it's the way I like to do TV. That kind of explains a lot of the dialogue changes. Yeah. Whereas the scenes that are word for word, especially in the pilot, I would anticipate, if I went back and looked, that they were shot very early.
Wow.
That makes sense.
So,
and I had, and then I just had a general, speaking of just like dialogue and having Ted having like a sunny disposition. I heard Jason being interviewed for SAG Foundation, and this was such a great question from Scott Feinberg. He put out there that playing kind of like destructive, troubled, mean characters can sometimes be hard for actors to shake at the end of the day. But he asked, does playing somebody with a sunny disposition stay with you after they call cut? And I just wanted to ask about writing Ted. Do you have to summon up some kind of energy in yourself or put on a different pair of glasses, or is it just like an instinctual thing?
Yeah, look, where we were at in our own heads and was if any of us had known this was going to work, or if any of us said this, we knew this was going to work. You should reach the Zoom and smack us and say you're lying, because you find yourself, I'm not inherently that optimistic. And so you would find yourself having Ted react to things and say things, whereas a writer, you're like, I don't believe this. Is this too much? Is this so much that people are going to think that this guy is a caricature and it's ridiculous? Or are we over calibrating? I felt it was a tightrope, and I always give Jason props that I do feel it would have failed did we not have the answer key in the writer's room. And what I mean by that is, what a gift to write a line and go, is this too much? And then Jason go, well, let's see. And he says it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And you imagine how much easier it is to write any show if the lead actor or actress is the writer, is in the writer's room with you, and will say what you just wrote, and you can immediately decide if that's too much or too little.
Wow. Well, especially with such a distinct positive character, which you don't really see many characters like that, as at least not the lead. So I think that's amazing. Wow.
So to us, we had the answer key in there, and it was fun.
Like, hey, just say it. So, Kat, let's go to page 14. So the football club and the ghost. Did you research that? Did you just kind of come up with that, or like did you guys do a lot of research about stuff like that?
We did enough to make sure we were never fibbing. We could certainly, there's the lore of they used our stadiums as a recruiting area for the war in one of the future episodes. We made sure that was true. Wasn't necessarily true with the stadium we're using. But this one, just to crap on myself, works backwards from Jason being obsessed with the word believe and saying, do you believe in ghosts, Ted? And him wanting to say, I do, but more importantly, I think they need to believe in themselves. And I tried to cut this line in editing, and Jason kept me from doing it. And I will admit publicly that I was wrong.
That's so funny.
Great line.
Yeah,
I don't need to hear that it was great. I know it's a mistake, Lauren. All right, I just admitted it was a mistake.
And her
Elizabeth, I just said the line's incredible. Okay, people make mistakes. Hard.
And Rebecca's reaction is hilarious after that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also, by the way, the other thing I tried to cut half of the Allen Iverson practice speech in a future episode, and Jason was like, dude, this is going to be a cool thing for especially people that are sports nerds. They'll love it. And I'm like, nobody's going to get it. And then it happened, and everybody, by the way, Jason was so nice that he didn't torture me, but everybody that said that they loved that, he made sure to like that tweet on Twitter. So I'm like, yeah, no, I get
it. Rub it in your face.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to page 15. This is not really a question, but this is just draw your attention to like the description of the barflies. And if we feel like this is a hallmark to great writing, when you can just like minor characters also have warmth and humanity in them, and they're so minor, and I think it's a hallmark of the show. So congratulations on that.
Oh, thanks, man. Look, here's my advice for young writers that I really believe, and this isn't a writing thing as much as it's, I don't know, just what I believe about television, because every artist out there is grinding. We just have always had the viewpoint on my projects and stuff. If somebody's just going to come in and do exposition and not have a full rich character, even if they have only 2 or 3 lines, you should give that job to someone that needs health insurance, and I'm not judging it at all. And they should, you should be like, hey, this is helping you get work, helping you pay bills. Your job is to come in and say, yeah, I love this team, or oh, the house is on fire, and that's it. But otherwise, if you're going to have someone be around, you got to, even if they're only going to have a couple lines, you got to be able to tell them who their character is, and really do it. And that, I'm telling you, my favorite shows dating back to MASH, and whether it was Igor or Kelly the nurse, do you know what I mean? Or people that were minor characters on that show. They weren't just the Simpsons is a great example. And they were able to do it because it's a cartoon. Anybody that spoke 2 lines was an actual character show,
Right. One thing I love about MASH, I watched it recently, is that by the second episode, it's all set. Like it's figured out.
Yeah.
They have it. And that from then on, it just takes off.
I know. I get jealous of stuff like that.
Right.
All right. Let's move on to page 20 here, where we have another, this is speechified, where Rebecca comes to Ted's defense during this press conference. And it's the first of a few times that she kind of shows genuine support for him. But I want to jump to now page 22, where Rebecca turns the tables and says she wants to burn the club to the ground. This really feels like, you were kind of addressing this before, like that traditional kind of act out in a network pilot. Of course, in the formatting for this, there are no act breaks. But do you, I mean, you said that you did, but I'm going to ask this anyway. Do you find yourself like really consciously thinking about act breaks when you're
I'm currently, to be honest, thinking I do like high points even in streaming shows. If I'm being honest right now, I'm spiraling because I really try hard not to copy or lift from even the people I love. Everybody's influenced by the artists they love, but I do think it's okay to steal from yourself. And I've been doing this for a long time. And and to me now, in the self-loathing that we all live in as writers, I'm looking at this moment and going, though it's necessary and it works. It's the Scrubs pilot where JD thinks Dr. Kelso is a good guy. And Dr. Kelso says, don't you realize you're nothing but a fucking pair of scrubs to me, and you realize that he's not the hero, and so I do this a lot. I like people. I'm going to try not to ever do it again. So if I'm ever lucky enough to be back there talking to you again, that you guys go, isn't this like the Ted Lasso scene?
You're doing it again, Bill. Yeah.
Also scene, but I think one of the best things to develop characters is to make people think they got it and then flip it. You know what I mean? It Scrubs, the model was, you think Dr. Cox is the jerk and Kelso's the good guy. And then you flip them and go, oh, the Dr. Cox character actually gives a shit and Kelso doesn't care.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
It's always good to have reversals, though.
Yeah. Let's just keep moving.
So we're gonna let's see, page 24, Kat. So this whole, the line about 4 countries in the UK and Ted goes kind of like America these days. So we know, how jokes come up in the room and how to develop in the room. But like when you're writing the pilot, like what's the origin of a lot of these jokes? Do you just go back and forth to the writers?
I'll tell you, this one is different from all the others because usually with the 4 of us, and so I used to be a mediocre stand-up comic. Jason is so good at improv and wrote sketches for SNL. Brendan Hunt, Joe Kelly, hugely accomplished comedy writer, great improv guy. Brendan Hunt, improv guy. We had no problems doing the jokes for this. The story was the thing we obsessed about. And so normally with 4 people in a room on a pilot, we were riffing, throwing jokes around, having fun. Right. Like this particular joke exists because this is one of the sections we kept from the original Premier League videos. But Jason said, if I have to keep this, I want to put a spin on it. And the thing that didn't exist was how many countries are in this country. I mean, that existed 4. Right. And the thing that didn't exist was kind of like America nowadays, which we came up with on set.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you scroll, Kat, scroll just a tiny, tiny bit, you'll see that line's not there on the page.
There you go. So we knew we were going to keep this bit in the show from the original videos. We changed it because it used to be, him and Beard talking, and we had both Beard and Nate saying it together. And Jason and Coolway said, this might be one of the things from that original video we keep, but it's got to have a new spin. And that's what we came up with as a button for it.
Got it.
Yes, it's so topical too.
All right, so let's go to the next page, page 25. And I just this big block of text here, I just want to draw attention to just this extra little bit. Well, right above the big blocky text, scroll just a tiny bit, Kat, where we learn about Sam here, where we learn that it's his first year on the team, coming from Nigeria, and then we see that there's hydrocodone for pain in Roy Kent's locker. And I just think that's like great visual kind of exposition about those characters. And can we talk about why it didn't make it into the final episode?
Sure. These are both part of each character's journey. And so these are both moments that they went away from the pilot for length issues, but only because we knew they were not disappearing from the show. So if you watch the show, you eventually see Sam's connection to home and Sam's connection to his parents. And if you watch the show, we eventually get to Roy's injuries and Roy, so these things are both a product of going. Roy Kent's journey is he's taking painkillers, he's getting older, he's barely surviving in the league, and an injury is going to take him out of it at the end of the season.
Wow.
And so we had a conversation of like, if we lose this, can we still do his journey? And we did. We found other
Right.
places to put it and still put him in pain and still put him straggling. Same thing with Sam's thing. We knew he had a great birthday thing in this one, in the second episode, and that we could hit his family and his missing home there.
Right.
And we did. So we just these are things that we cut only because we knew we could move them out.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. So let's move to page 28. I think everyone wants to know.
I'm excited. If everybody wants to know, I'm excited to see what page 28 is.
Page 28, where never thought it'd end being coached by Ronald fucking McDonald.
There you go.
Where did that line come from?
Everyone wants to know that.
I'll tell you right now, Brett Goldstein, this is the best thing, was not hired as an actor. He was one of the writers on the show. He plays Roy. He's still a writer producer on the show. He's created his own show before. He's a writer first in a comic show called Soulmates, which was on AMC. It's really good. Check it out. And when Brett was, and he was one of the British writers we hired right away to help us with, in a great way, his family and Phoebe Walsh, another British writer on the show. Their families are both entrenched in the Premier League, so they could both give us lingo, writing help, and what it meant to be, a regional soccer fan. Right towards the end, and I'd known Brett for a long time, and right towards the end of the writer's room, when we had written all this stuff before we had shot any of it, because we wrote most of the episodes before we shot a one, is Brett said, and he's the sweetest guy in the world and not a hard ass, and he's vulnerable and lovely and talented. And he said, I think I could play Roy. I'm like, you? And he's like, I'm going to film something, and then you and I are going to look at it. And if you think it's horrible, we're never going to let Jason know. But if you think it's good, we're going to send it to him. And it was awesome. And we sent it to him, and Jason cast one of the writers as a regular. So if you're asking me, where that line came from, that is one of the many options of things that Brett Goldstein said.
Oh, right.
Got
right.
it.
That's
way to go, Brett. Okay, so let's go to page 32. This is just another thing we just want to call attention to, because it's kind of cool. When Nathan is taking Lasso and Beard home, Higgins's conscience kind of manifests as acid reflux, and I just recall seeing this in Double Indemnity, and just older film noir, which just leads into Rebecca being well, it shouldn't bother you because you snuck, Rupert's women in behind my back all those years. And I don't really have a question. I just want to draw attention to it because I think it's cool.
Right.
Well, you know what? There's a moment that we really liked doing, just so you know, because it's, again, like when you say you try to show people a character that they think they got it completely, right? And so what part of Higgins' pilot journey was, and he has a journey, and it became his journey for the season, was he say, we show a put upon classic toady character and go, you like him, and then you go, why is this mean woman treating him this way? He's the sweet one and she's the horrible one. And we wanted to do that, and Jeremy was perfect for the role. And we knew that the end was going to go, you pretended to be my friend and you snuck women in to fuck him,
that's awesome.
the entire time, you piece of shit, and that's the surprise about this guy that's meek and whatever. And that's, when we say journeys, we knew we were doing this moment because his end moment in the show was in episode 8, when he says, you're right about that, and I should have been stronger, and I should have told him not to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's his whole ride in the at least the first series.
Man, that's brilliant. That's awesome. Okay, so let's we got a few minutes left. Let's Kat, can we move on to page 36? And so the monologue, which is it's so good, right? It's so good. Was it a conscious decision to just do it just him without meeting the wife, without seeing like any other character, just him.
Jason Jason Sudeikis, when I say we divided a lot of this shit up, he took this, he wrote it beginning, middle, and end himself.
Wow.
Same thing, by the way, I always give him props because people are like, is he really a writer? Everybody loves that Dart speech. Jason showed up at work with the Dart speech and never touch anybody else's typewriter. Once he did this, then we had the conversation, and I was worried because it's a whole speech and there's nothing to cut to. And we ran out of time because we had intended, if you remember in that thing, he's next to a cool, beautiful window that looks down at London. It was real flat in London. And we had intended to, out on the street, get a shot of him doing the whole monologue, walking back and forth like he was, as a cut point, because otherwise you're stuck in one or two takes. You can punch in when he goes tight, if you get lucky, but he was so good in this. We never had to go back and get that shot. We were just able to kind of keep what he did.
Wow. Yeah. It's done so brilliantly. That's amazing. I could see how that would work, but I could see how you could doubt that it could work.
Yeah, just when you're shooting it, you're like, dude, there's nothing to cut to, period. Which is, by the way, when you guys all start shooting stuff and doing your pilots, it's a nightmare. It's like, hey, it'd be great to, like, if this was a network show where you had to be 22 minutes and 40 seconds or whatever, and you're like, hey, we could just lose this 15 seconds, but it's impossible because there's nowhere else to go.
Wow. Everybody here should be so lucky.
Right. All right. So we let's move now. I think that's the phone ringing here. Oh well.
I got it.
Yeah. So let's move down to the very last line of the script, which is shoot. Now I can't sleep. He's laying there in bed. And how did we end up here?
It was weird working backwards, which was we wanted you to believe that Ted's not just, if in retrospect, he's not just a rube. You know what I mean? It was like really important to us knowing that we were eventually going to show people this guy is more emotionally savvy than you think. It was important to us that the press conference that he screwed up at was thrust upon him. It wasn't something that he was ill prepared for. Mm-hmm. It was something he was pushed into. Mm-hmm. And then we also added, whether it mattered or not, I think it's really important that Ted tells a story to Beard that he was unable to sleep on the plane and is a little messy hair-wise and a little scattered and just doing his best to hang on, on an overwhelming shitty day. Because for us, it bought us the ability to push the line a little bit on the mistakes he made and spitting out water and doing the best he could, and then switch gears to the second episode when when he's doing Be a Goldfish and it's like, oh, this guy is not the dumbest tool in the shed at all. Right. And it just serendipitously gave us a button out to what otherwise would have been a very depressing ending.
Wow.
Got it.
That's really cool. So I think we're gonna try.
Well, I have one.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. One. So I noticed a couple days ago you were doling out bad advice on Twitter.
Oh, I've been doing that for years. It's my shit. You want to know why I do it? By the way?
We got bad advice guy here. So I just, to wrap things up, what's the single worst piece of advice you can offer to someone who's trying to write a pilot?
Worst piece of advice, right? Yeah. Not best. You want some worst piece of advice. I'll give you a bunch of worst piece of advice. One is, hey, if you're a new young writer that lands on a show, don't say anything until you get the lay of the land. Be very careful and quiet. But the biggest one I can tell you, because it's chasing me right now in a way, and I don't say this in a self-aggrandizing way, just so everybody out there knows, I've had as many giant stinkers as successes in my career. And in fact, I count myself lucky that very few of my god-awful pieces of garbage made it to TV. They were so bad. People were just like, we're never filming this and you need to stop doing this for a living. So, but one of the things that is, if you love a show, that's great. Don't try to copy it. So we all see these things of like, oh, Friends is hot, I'll do Friends. One of my friends after Scrubs was like, oh, they're having me do Scrubs in a high school. I'm like, don't do it. And I'm telling you that when I say I'm not being self-aggrandizing, what's going on out there a lot, even to me with other projects that have nothing to do with this out there, people are going, well, you probably want to do your Ted Lasso thing with this, how the main character is super optimistic and vomiting hugs and blah, blah. And I'm like, it's not the same thing. Right. So my biggest piece of advice is trying to figure out what's going to work based on what's currently working never works. That's the most complicated sentence of all.
Yeah, no, that's well said.
Well said.
So I want to ask one audience question so that we don't.
Feel free.
So did the improvisational stuff exist on set too?
Yeah, it depends on the characters that are there. I think Jason is, really wants to shoot the material, but there's so many brilliant comics and comedians that there's a ton of versions of this show, lines that are equally as funny or just different funny that we've shot for almost every line and joke. It's just not like the Judd Apatow school where you do over, tighter. And then it's like, now it's your turn to riff. Now it's your turn to riff. We're not doing that.
Right. Great.
Megan wants the outtakes. Megan, I'm going to have a huge party and show the outtakes in my garage. It's going to be great. Why do I write bad advice? Oh, just so you all know, Twitter is toxic. Bad advice guy is literally because I'm old and I'm trying to sharpen my joke writing skills or less, because they come so fast and furious. And that's literally the gig of being in a writer's room when you're a joke writer.
That's well said.
There you go.
All right. Well, I guess this is it. Thanks, Bill. Thanks so much. This was just so insightful and so nice to talk to you about the script, because we obviously love the show. And thanks so much for all your support of the foundation and
of course
all of that.
I'm grateful to be part of it. And I want to make sure that people have been saying nice things. You guys said nice things. I really, really appreciate it. I'm not great at accepting compliments, but my wife has been telling me I have to look people in the eyes so I don't seem like a standoffish jerk and say I'm so grateful and hopefully gracious that anybody would give any of their time to watch this show. So all the people in the chat room and you guys, I really, really appreciate it.
It was so great.
Thank God for your wife. All right. Thank you, Bill.
See you guys. Good luck, everybody. Keep writing.
Goodbye, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Good rest of your
Thanks for
night.
coming.
Take care.
Hey, thanks, Javier. Thanks, Lauren. I really appreciate it. That was awesome.